Hi, I'm Donna Green Goodman, and I'd like to welcome you to the premiere of my new show, Cooking Up Good Health. I don't want you to move from the spot you're in because I'm about to take some biscuits out of the oven, and I don't want you to miss that. So stay right where you are, and we'll be right back. Thanks so much for sticking by and enjoying the first show in Cooking Up Good Health. I am so excited about these wonderful biscuits that I made. I can't wait till we taste them. And I'm really excited because this is the first time that I get to talk to so many people. Some of you have read the book or heard about the book I wrote, Something to Shout About. And I wrote the book after I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the entire story is in here if indeed you're interested in reading it or giving it to someone who may be going through the same experience. Once I was introduced to a new way of living after my diagnosis, I made a lot of significant lifestyle changes, including the way that I worked and the way that I exercised. I got rid of some relationships and people who were dragging me down. But I think one of the biggest things that I did was to change the way I ate. I pretty much ate healthfully, but I like to eat things like potato chips and soda and fast food and a couple other things that weren't so good for me. And as I began to study about the relationship between diet to disease, I decided I was going to make some changes. Now, my husband and my son weren't as happy as I was at first, but it's been close to about 13 years now, and we've all made a lot of changes and are so much healthier because of it. I would like for you to get comfortable, get a pencil and a piece of paper, and take down some of this information. Many times when we are introduced to making dietary lifestyle changes, it's hard to make the change because we're not sure how we can do it. One of the first things when we look at the food pyramid, at the bottom of the pyramid is the grains. And there's a lot going on today about good carbs and bad carbs. And this is one of the things that I like to introduce to my students when I'm teaching, because it's just a beautiful way for you to see what a good carb is or a bad carb is. For the most part, the grains that we eat start out whole. They have a germ, a bran, and an endosperm in it. And back in the 1940s, people started taking out the bran, the germ, and the endosperm so that we could eat good white bread and white rolls and white biscuits and white cake. But as they took all those things out, you see pretty much what they left us with. And whenever I do this for my students, they're like, Ms. Goodman, you can't make it any smaller than that. But look at this is exactly what happens when you take away the protective fibers that are inside of the grains that we have been encouraged to start eating. Now, when you look over here at a loaf of whole grain bread, it's kind of hard to push this down. As a matter of fact, I'm putting the same amount of energy on this as I did on that loaf of bread, and I can't move it. And the reason I can't move it is because it has everything in it that nature intended. And that's the kind of food that you need to be eating if you really want to have good health. So what we're going to start out with today is rice. One of those grains that we like to take and make like this, a bad carb. But we're going to show you how you can take traditional brown rice, and this is the way that it's grown in nature. It's darker, it has everything in it, good B vitamins, lots of fiber. It's wonderful if a person is constipated. If perhaps a person has type 2 diabetes, this is one of the best things you can eat in order to regulate your blood sugar. Now, because it's a whole grain, it takes a little longer to cook. And what I usually do when I cook brown rice is to put it in an oven-proof dish like this, and then I'll add just a little salt to it. And you don't have to put salt if you're on a salt-restricted diet or if you like to put some kind of bouillon in it. And then I take 2.5 times the amount of water. So for this is 2 cups of brown rice, and I've got about 5 cups of water here. And I'm going to pour it in, and then I'm going to put the top on it, and I'm going to step over here and put it in the oven at 350 degrees. And in about an hour and a half, it's going to be ready for you to eat. Another way that you can cook this brown rice is on top of the stove, like I've done here. And what I usually do with the brown rice is to take a little olive oil and put it in the pan and kind of stir fry the rice in the pan. And then I add the water to it and turn the heat back down and let it simmer for about an hour, hour and a half, because it takes much longer to cook because it's a whole grain. If you're not quite sure that this is what you want to do, you can also buy a variety now of instant brown rices. There are national brands, there are store brands that work as well, and that will guarantee that every time you cook the rice it turns out good. Because this is a whole grain, it takes longer to cook and it puffs up like oats do. And so if you're in the habit of eating traditional white rice, you might not want to eat this because it's going to be a lot fuller than what you're used to eating. So the way to start eating brown rice until you've mastered this is to use the instant brown rice instead. Now, I've mentioned that recently I started teaching again at Oakwood University, and my friend Rwanda and I would do a lab every week. And while we were doing that lab, the students were in their kitchens and they were cooking whatever they were supposed to cook for the day. But Rwanda and I needed to make something that we could eat. And so we started coming up with a different recipe in our little prep kitchen. And every week it seemed that the students would leave their kitchen and come to our kitchen to see what we had going on. So I would call this the veggie cuisine rice from Oakwood University that my students introduced us to. And Rwanda and I just kind of came up with this recipe ourselves. I'm putting in a little olive oil and I'm getting the pan nice and warm. And I'm going to take this soy sausage. Soy sausage is an option for people who are deciding to add soy into their diet. And it made this dish absolutely delicious. But you don't have to use this if this isn't anything that you are used to or want to. I have made this once before, and one of the people who work on the production of this team couldn't believe how good it was. And if I had not told them that it was soy sausage, they wouldn't have known the difference. So we take this soy sausage and we get it in the pan. And once it gets nice and heated, it's going to start sizzling and browning. And then we're going to add some other things to it. As Rwanda and I were making this recipe up as we went along, what I was really interested in doing was incorporating some black beans into something. And it was actually during this semester that I had a number of students who were from the island of Haiti. And I tried to teach them and incorporate into what we were doing in class things that mattered to their culture. And one of my students, Sabrina, and her lab partner, Beatrice, asked me if I had ever cooked something called Jean-Jean. And I never heard of Jean-Jean because I don't know a whole lot about Haiti. But I knew that I liked black beans and I made a really good black bean soup. So what we decided to do was make that dish for her. And I was hesitant about cooking with the black beans because I didn't want to turn everything that I was cooking black. Well, as it turns out, when we made this recipe, we decided to add some of these other wonderful ingredients to it that were delicious, and the students loved it, and it didn't turn the rice black. So we're going to let this continue to brown for a few more minutes, and then we're going to come right back so that you'll be able to see all the other things that go in here, and we'll get this simmering, and we'll cook up some other wonderful things for today using some really good brown rice. Looking for ways to improve your health? It's not as hard as you might think, and it's what your doctor has already told you. Go to bed before 10 every night. Walk 20 to 30 minutes a day. Get a daily sun bath. Eat more plant foods. Start saying no. Drink some clear, cool water. Take some deep breaths and yield to the power of the divine. These simple lifestyle principles are transforming people's lives and helping them to celebrate healthy living. Join the celebration. Okay, we're back. While you were gone, I went ahead and I added some of the onions and bell peppers, and I've had them sauteing really nicely. Sometimes when I'm watching other people cook or looking at different cultures, it's amazing to me that if you're cooking something that's savory, onions and bell peppers and garlic are almost always a must. So now that these have sauteed some, I'm going to add some instant brown rice, one 14-ounce box of instant brown rice. And I'm going to stir that in. And then it gets really fun. Rwanda and I stood there in that kitchen that day and we said, okay, what else can we go in here? Well, we're going to add the black beans, that's for sure. So we added the black beans. And this is just 1 can of black beans that has been drained and rinsed. And then we thought, well, what goes with black beans? And we started thinking again. And we thought, well, corn goes with black beans. So we have about a cup of frozen corn, and if it's summertime and you've got fresh corn, you can add fresh corn to it. So by this time, it's starting to take on a Mexican kind of flavor. And we said, all right, now we need to add some other flavorings to it. And one of the things that I have learned to love cooking with is cumin. And cumin is often used in Mexico to season a lot of things. So we're going to put a little cumin in here, which gives it a real good Mexican kind of flavor. Then we're going to add some seasoning that's kind of like a bouillon, but it doesn't have, you don't have to worry about cholesterol or saturated fat being in it. And we're going to stir that in. And then we're going to hydrate this by adding in about 1/2 cup of a salsa of your choice. We prefer to use the one that is vinegar free. And there's an excellent option out there on the market. And stir that around. And then we're going to add about 2 3/4 cup of water. Those students were leaving their kitchen and coming over to our kitchen as quickly as they could. Miss Goodman, Miss Winder, what are y'all making over here? We want some, please. After it comes to a boil again, then we're just going to reduce it. Isn't that beautiful? So this is one of those dishes that's high in fiber. It's low in saturated fat. It's cholesterol free. It's good for anybody who is dealing with constipation. If the doctor has told you that he wants you to get off your medication because if you change how you eat, your blood sugars are going to normalize, this will be excellent for you as well. So we'll let that come back to a boil, and then we'll turn it down and let it simmer, and then we'll let you taste it at the end of the show. Now, the next thing we're going to do is look at making what I call dirty rice. I've already shown you a few minutes ago about how you can take the brown rice and cook it on top of the stove. So what we're going to do now is make some dirty rice. I didn't grow up in New Orleans, but I just loved how dirty rice looked. So I decided I'm going to be able to make this a healthy way as well. And I came up with this recipe, and my husband loves it. We're going to put a little olive oil in the pan. And of course, sometimes you want to make sure that if you're cooking in a skillet like this, that it's heated up before you put the food in there because the iron is going to take a little longer to heat up. And might I say that if there are any problems, of course, with iron deficiency in your family, cooking in iron skillets is one of the best ways that you can raise the iron in your blood. When I was working for the Georgia Extension Service, I ran into a lady who came to our office who was pregnant at the time, and the doctor told her, she was a vegetarian, the doctor told her that if she wanted to continue in this pregnancy and be healthy, she needed to add some meat to her diet. She didn't want to add any. She was convicted that's what she needed to do. This was back in the early 80s. And so she talked to some of the dietitians in her office, and we told her, of course, the really good foods that she could eat instead that would bring her iron level up. And then we told her to go and cook inside of an iron skillet. Well, wouldn't you know, the next time we heard from her, she told us that she had gone to her doctor and didn't have to go and have any changes in her diet because she had made these changes and her body had absorbed the iron the way that it was supposed to, and there was no problem at all that she was going to have in having a healthy outcome in her pregnancy. What I'm adding to the pan now, for those of you who are also interested in eating a cholesterol-free version, is some soy sausage and some soy ham and some soy chicken. And we're going to get this nice and crispy and brown. And then we're going to add, of course, onions and bell pepper and garlic, which, of course, are going to make this tremendous. And then what we're going to do is add some wonderful seasonings to it that are going to take the flavor of this up so good. I wish you could be here because it tastes so good. So what you need to do is get the recipe so that you can make it for your family. And don't tell them everything that you're putting in it. Let them taste it first. Because if the food tastes good, they're more likely going to eat it. Okay? Now I'm going to put a little veggie chicken in here, soy chicken. And there are some people out there who are interested in making diet and lifestyle changes and they don't want to add any soy, anything. You don't have to if you don't want to. You could do this strictly as a vegetable way. And if you are a meat eater, you could eat the lower fat versions of the meat that perhaps the doctor is asking you to change in your diet. There we go. It is starting to get nice and hot. and brown. I can remember one of the first times I made this, my husband said, "How do you make it dirty?" Well, the secret in making it dirty are the herbs. Basil is one that I really like to use, and parsley tend to make it dirty. And then if it's not dirty enough, you can always add paprika to give it a little darker color. Here we go. Now we're going to add all kinds of bell peppers, the orange ones. We've got some yellow ones. We've got some red ones. We've got sweet yellow onion. And we've got red onion. Oh, this is going to be so good. I haven't had dirty rice in a long time. And we're going to add some green bell pepper, and we're going to keep cooking. And as we continue to saute, of course, the vegetables are going to get a little softer as the heat hits them up. And then what we're going to do is add some rice and make it dirty. You will not believe how good this is going to taste. I really wish I could give it to you. Okay. Now, if the vegetables and the soy burgers and stuff that you have in here doesn't get brown, you don't really have to worry so much about it because you're going to add plenty of the herbs to it, so that's going to darken it. So then I want to take some of this brown rice that's already been cooked, and we're going to add some of that brown rice to this dish. We're going to pour that in like this. And we're going to start stirring it around. There we go. In our next segment, we're going to be working on a dish that I did for a friend of mine, David Person, who swore up and down that he would never eat brown rice a day in his life. And I waited while he was tasting it. And then I said, "But David, that's what this is." And he said, "No, Donna, there's no way that's brown rice. I don't like the way brown rice tastes." But when you season it up well, brown rice is hardly indistinguishable from the rice that we're used to eating, and it's much, much better for you because it provides all the nutrients that you need. We're going to take a break right now while I finish this up, and when we come back, we're going to make another rice dish that I've created that uses some of these same ingredients, but we've made the rice yellow, which is one of my favorite rices. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you thought those other dishes were good, you're just not going to know what to do when you see this yellow confetti rice. One of the things that was the biggest challenge for me when I started eating more healthfully was converting from white rice to brown rice. And the longer I cooked it, the better it tasted. But when I introduced myself to the instant brown rice, oh my goodness, it was just absolutely wonderful. And so what I've done today is to prepare ahead of time some brown rice that I actually made into yellow rice. And what I did with the yellow rice was to take it and saute some onions in a little olive oil, put the rice in the pan, and then add some bay leaves and parsley and a little of that non-chicken bouillon and let it cook through. And then I have this leftover rice. So what I'm going to do with it today is make this confetti rice. And again, for those of you who are not interested in using soy products, you don't have to use it at all because there's enough in this rice to give you everything that you absolutely need. But this was the original recipe that I created for my family. And I had a friend who was really going through some rough times, and a mutual friend of ours asked if I would cook something for her. Well, I decided to do that. And the girl who asked me to do the cooking, "Come on, Donna, I'll pay you if you make this for me. This rice was so good." And I could not believe how easy it was to do and how much people enjoyed it. Another friend of mine who I've recently introduced this to was my friend David Person that I think I mentioned to you earlier. I was on his radio show and we were doing a conversation about eating more healthfully, and I was talking about the importance of eating brown rice, and he looked at me and said, I don't eat brown rice because it just doesn't taste good. When I put it in my mouth, it's not good. Well, by that time, he had swallowed about 3 mouthfuls of this recipe, and I didn't say anything. And we kept talking, and then we got to the end of the segment, and I said, well, you know, Dave, that rice that you just ate was brown. Donna, no, you can't tell me that that was brown rice. It was absolutely delicious. So while this is browning up here, a few minutes more, I'm going to cut up some red onion because I just thought, you know, the red onion might be really good in here because it's going to add another dimension of color. And I didn't originally plan to put that in there, but we're going to add a little red onion to this as well. One of the reasons that I so enjoy cooking like this is because so many of these foods that I put in these dishes are full of color. And scientists are discovering now that the color is where all of the healing and disease preventing power is. And they've named these things phytochemicals, which are actually plant chemicals. So while this is browning, I'm going to go over here and cut up this red onion. And I'm sure you know, many of you probably have heard when it comes to fighting cancerous diseases, they mention one of the more famous phytochemicals is lycopene, and we find that in foods like tomatoes and sweet red peppers and guavas and watermelon. And the darker the color of the food, the higher the potential for it to offer phytochemicals. So if you're trying to decrease heart disease, I think this would be a great one for you to incorporate into your family's eating patterns. And if there's somebody who indeed has cancer, this would be an excellent one for them to consider as well, because it has all of these beautifully colored foods in it. So some of you are probably saying, didn't she put that in the last recipe that she demonstrated? I most certainly did. But it's not going to taste anything like the one that I just prepared because the seasonings in here are totally different. So while this is in here just browning around, getting nice and heated, we're going to add all the vegetables. We're going to put in red onion. Doesn't that look good? And then we're going to put in yellow peppers and green peppers. And keep stirring it around. And we're going to add orange peppers. I think I told you I named this rice confetti rice because all these little peppers cut up in here are so beautiful. And we're going to add some sweet onion. Now, because I use a lot of this as the base in some of the dishes that I prepare, I was trying to think which other vegetable could I add to this that would be really, really good and that's really healthy for you. And again, I came up with using broccoli. And I don't know that many people would intentionally put that in here because you usually eat it underneath some cheese sauce. But here I've got about 2 cups of broccoli that's just been chopped up, the florets. And we're going to stir those around in here as well. Oh, this is just so amazing. And healthy, because you know, a lot of times when people are told that they need to eat more healthily, they think that they have to go out, as my brother used to say, and eat grass and tree bark in order to be healthy. But you don't have to eat grass and tree bark. You can just eat from the field all these wonderful foods that nature has provided, and every bite you take is full of the ability to prevent disease and to promote health. Now, the next thing I'm going to add is a can of black beans that have been rinsed. And when it comes to helping to normalize blood sugar, black beans are some of the best. As a matter of fact, you know what I'm discovering? The darker the food, whatever you eat, the healthier it is. If it does not grow originally as a white food, you probably don't want to eat it. You want to eat foods that are full of color. And you know, they say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Well, the darker the food, the healthier it is for you. Oh my, can you hear it? A friend of mine told me that there's going to be something called smell-o-vision one day. Maybe by that time, if I'm still on the air, you'll be able to smell all this wonderful stuff and then run out to your local grocer or health food store and prepare it for your family. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to add this rice, and this is actually a 14-ounce box of rice that has been prepared and left over, and we're going to add that in here. And usually when I start to get to this point, I start to add other seasonings. But I don't really have to because the soy meat is seasoned and the rice is already seasoned. And so once it gets nice and stirred and heated through, you might want to check and see if you want to add a little something to it, but you normally don't have to do it. I think this would be something great to cook when company is over, right on your island in the kitchen and the family gathers around. I think that is such an awesome opportunity to talk about health and all the other issues that come up in families and cook up good health, especially for women who are living with men in their lives who have disease. I think a lot of times we don't work hard enough to make things for our men that can bring them back to a place that they can be proud of and where they are able to restore their health. Doesn't that look absolutely delicious? Well, you know what? I think we're going to take one more break because I think I hear somebody knocking at the door. And when you come back, I think my friends are going to be here, and we'll let them taste it and tell you how good it was. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you have enjoyed this show, then you need to tell all your friends because you are going to want to share this with them. My friends Nancy and Rwanda are here, and I can't wait to finish serving up this stuff for them so that they can taste it. If you want something to shout about, then I think you need to start incorporating these wonderful, simple, delicious, nutritious dishes into your daily routine and share it with those that you love. And remember, if you are in Donna's kitchen, you must be cooking up good health. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Up good health now. Wait a minute. Hold my mule.